المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. اللهم أصلح لنا ديننا الذي هو عصمة أمرنا، وأصلح لنا دنيانا التي فيها معاشنا، وأصلح لنا آخرتنا التي إليها معادنا، واجعل الحياة زيادة لنا في كل خير، واجعل الموت راحة لنا من كل شر. So, what ayah are we on now? وإن كنتم في ريب مما نزلنا على عبدنا, right? أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وإن كنتم في ريب مما نزلنا على عبدنا فأتوا بسورة من مثله وادعوا شهداءكم من دون الله إن كنتم صادقين. فإن لم تفعلوا ولن تفعلوا فاتقوا النار التي وقودها الناس والحجارة أعدت للكافرين. وبشر الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات أن لهم جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار كلما رزقوا منها من ثمرة رزقا قالوا هذا الذي رزقنا من قبل وأتوا به متشابها ولهم فيها أزواج مطهرة وهم فيها خالدون. السلام. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he talks about the munafiqeen. So he first talks about the muttaqeen, he talks about the kuffar, and then he talks about the munafiqeen, right? And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he gives us an order to what we're supposed to do, right? So he tells us to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And then he gives us the reasons why. الذي جعل لكم الأرض فراشا والسماء بناء وأنزل من السماء ماء فأخرج به من الثمرات رزقا لكم فلا تجعلوا لله أندادا وأنتم تعلمون. Right? So worship me and only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, now that he has given us all of that, now he tells us that if you're going to disbelieve in the Prophet ﷺ, if you're going to disbelieve in the Quran, then bring something like it, right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he gives this challenge many times in the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, bring speech like it. فَأْتُوا بِحَدِيثٍ مِثْلِهِ إِن كُنتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. Bring speech that's like it, right? And then this is bringing a surah bringing a surah like it. There's another challenge to bring a Prophet ﷺ like him. Um, so, alaykum assalam. So nonetheless, there's always these whenever there is a challenge. This challenge. So if you think about it, when a bigger person challenges a little person, right? It's because it's one of two reasons, right? The bigger person is challenging the little person to encourage the little person to do the thing, right? Or the other reason that the bigger person challenges the little person is to prove to them that they can't do it.
You're a little person.
Right. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is making this challenge knowing that they can't do it. And subhanallah, this shows you the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because why don't they make it? Make something like it. Till this day, right? There have been attempts for people have. I remember there were times when I was younger, I've heard of somebody making a new Quran. I don't know if you guys have heard of those things. Yeah. They make a new Quran and like it lasts for like, it comes on the news for like a week.
It's like a fad.
A month, right? Yeah, exactly. This is exactly what it is.
They laugh at you, man. So, what they mean the new Quran? Different wording?
Yeah, they change it around. They make it more politically correct and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I heard the Libyan Gaddafi tried to remove coal from the Quran. Is that true or not? Allahu Alam.
Yeah, he did.
He did try it.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, he wanna remove because
He wrote a book. He called it the Green Book.
Okay.
I'm not sure if he claimed that it is the Quran. I don't know,
Okay.
but he called it the Green Book. But anyways, the point is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he made this challenge. And this is deep, subhanAllah, because, I mean, you would think if I hate Islam, and I'm a PhD, right? Like I have like 10 PhDs, because I'm sure there's people out there that are like that. They have lots of PhDs, they have all the knowledge in the world, where they can make a book, like, right? And the Prophet ﷺ didn't have any education. Right? So if they want to challenge someone who had no education with a book, it makes sense that you should be able to come up with something better, similar, right? But no, it has never happened and it never will. And subhanAllah, this right here, this ayah in itself is enough proof that this Quran is from Allah. It's enough proof because, again, I mean, like, how can anybody say that this is from a man who has no education, and yet people who have all the PhDs in the world, they can't get together and come up with something that is better than it, or like it even? They can't. It's not possible, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that if you have a doubt in this book, okay, come up with something better. Or come up with something like it. Right? So if you have a doubt in what we have revealed, because again, and another thing about this, about the Quran, is anybody who says something profound, or who invents something profound, what's the first thing that you do? You put your name on it. You say, I did this.
Right.
Prophet ﷺ never said he.
Right.
He never claimed the Quran. Right? So if it was from him, why didn't he claim it?
Yeah.
He should have, right?
Yes.
But no. He said it was from Allah. Right? So there's no, this is, all of this is indisputable evidence. It's indisputable. Right? So in this ayah, he says, what we have revealed to our servant, ala abdina. Right? Now, this is an important aspect. He's referring to himself in in a group, na, which is us, right? Which is how a king, the greater you are, the greater you refer to yourself. So like,
Royal
right.
we, yeah.
So when a royal person is referring to himself, he says we.
Yeah.
We did this, right? But subhanallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, Innani ana Allah. In this case, he didn't say Innana nahnu Allah. He said Innani, me, I am Allah. Why? Because now we're talking about a situation, there needs to be no doubt that there is not more than one. It's only one God. Because now the Christians, they come and they say, oh yeah, there's God, and then there's the Son, and then there's the Holy Ghost, right? This is what the Christians, they say, right? Ta'ala Allah amma yaqulun. Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is making it clear. Like the Christians, when they make this interpretation of the Bible, it's not because that they have clear evidence of that. They're just making their own interpretation. Right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala now is bringing the Quran and making it 100% clear. So they can't say, oh yeah, you have in your Quran, it says us. It says we. Right?
That doesn't limit it to three though, right? We.
No, it doesn't say what it is. It doesn't, no.
Yeah, even for their side too, I'm saying. When they say, when it says we, doesn't mean three.
No, but I don't think it even said we, but anyways, that's not our topic. But the thing that's important is that whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about himself in regards to Tawheed, he says me. But when he's talking about something else, right, then it could be, right, it could, like, this is not referring to ibadah. We have revealed to our servant, right? Because we could also mean that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed it, and he used angels to reveal it. So there is a we there. Does that make sense? Which is what exactly Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did, right? Nonetheless, also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is referring to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam as abdina. Right? And as a matter of fact, the highest praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave the Prophet ﷺ was when he said, وَإِنَّهُ لَمَّا قَامَ عَبْدُ اللَّهِ يَدْعُوهُ كَادُوا يَكُونُونَ عَلَيْهِ لِبَدًا, right? And that when the Prophet ﷺ, he stood up. So he called him Abdullah. Right? And that's the highest praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given the Prophet ﷺ in the Quran. So to be called, like they called it al-isnadu ilallah. Al-isnad ilallah is like when you are connecting someone to Allah. Right? So when he called him abdina, right? It means that he is connected, like Allah is connecting him to him. In by way of being a servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is the highest honor. Right? Because if you think about it, they say Sayyidul Qawmi Khadimuhum. The leader of a people is the one who serves them. Or the servant of them. The leader of the people is the servant of the people. Or not leader, but the chief of the people is the servant of the people. Right? Meaning the more that you serve people, the higher your status is. Right? That's one, but also the one who has the highest status, in order for him to keep that status, he has to serve the people. Right? There has to be use in him. Does that make sense? Yeah. So, and this goes to all relationships as well. Relationships that we have in this world, right? Relationships are important because there is use between them. There is usefulness between people, right? Whenever there comes a time when there is no usefulness between two people, then that relationship starts to go sour, So that usefulness is extremely important. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, so the fact, I mean, think about this for a second. If now Allah is in need of none of us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His path is going to be victorious whether we are on it or not, whether we are supporting it or not. Does that make sense? But what use is our life if we're not serving Allah? What use is our life if we're not serving Him? Every relationship is usefulness, right? So why should Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep us here if we're not serving His agenda? Do you know what I'm saying? But if we are constantly serving Allah's agenda and everything in our life is about serving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then it is a good thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses us. Because that helps His agenda. As whenever something the Prophet ﷺ used to like would happen, he would say, Alhamdulillah, alladhi bi ni'matihi tatimmu salihat. He said, Alhamdulillah, the one with his blessings, the good deeds continue. So the thing that's important is not that I gotta receive the good thing. The thing is are the good deeds continuing because I did that, because I received the good thing. You get what I'm saying? So it's all about servicing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or serving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? So he said, فَأْتُوا بِسُورَةٍ مِّن مِثْلِهِ. Right? Like, bring a surah, like not just a surah, he's not even challenging them to bring a surah. He said, bring the least possible surah that you could possibly come up with. Right? Like Musaylim al-Dajjal, he came up with a surah he called Al-Fil. He said, Al-Fil وما الفيل وما أدراك ما الفيل or something like that. له ذيل طويل له أنف طويل وذيل قصير or something like that. So he was describing the elephant, right? And he just basically just described the elephant. Okay, so this was his attempt to come up with a surah like the Quran, right? But it fell flat on its face. It didn't go anywhere because the thing about the Quran, what is it? What is the thing about the Quran that is significant that Allah is challenging them to bring? Okay, one is the eloquency of it. Okay, is it going to be eloquent? Two is the impact of it. The message and the impact, yes. All of that, it has to be in the Quran, right? And let's just say, hypothetically speaking, someone was able to come up with something eloquent. Someone was able to come up with something that has an impact that was extremely potent, right? Well, the other aspect that the Quran has is that there's like millions of people who memorized it. And there are millions of people who follow it. Who's going to follow that book? Right? Maybe you might have a couple, a handful, 2 handfuls, but that's it. Why? Because there's no comparison. You can't compare the two. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, so bring a surah that is remotely like it if you are truthful. Right? If you're truthful.
It's okay.
If you are truthful, meaning you're making this claim that the Prophet ﷺ, his revelation is not from Allah. This is the claim, right? Whatever the Prophet ﷺ brought is not from Allah. Okay, so if you really believe that, and you're 100% on this, okay, so bring something like it. And they can't. They never will. So then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and subhanallah, I mean, what book are you going to find in the world that's going to say you will never be able to write something like this? Who would make that claim?
That's a very confident challenge.
Right. The only one that would make that claim is someone who knows the future, who knows the past, the present, and the future. That's the only one who's going to make that claim, because it's been 1,400 years and nobody has done it. Right? So he says, and then he says after that, فَإِن لَمْ تَفْعَلُوا. So if you don't, then he says, وَلَن تَفْعَلُوا, and you won't. La ilaha illallah. That's deep. I mean, subhanAllah, the more I think about this challenge, the more I'm just flabbergasted by it. Because, I mean, who makes this challenge? Who does that? I've never read a book before that says no one can write something like this in the future. Maybe they might say, I haven't read anything like this before. But they'll never say, no one will ever write something like this. Ever. Like really? Do you really believe that? And then now, 1,400 years later, nothing. Nothing. All the scholars that have lived ever since then till this day, they've never come up with something like it? Really? I mean, that in itself, I think, is 100% proof that the Quran is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So how can you make this challenge? Allah is telling them, right? So now that you understand that you can't make this challenge, and you will not make this challenge. Not only is he's saying you can't, he's also challenging them and saying you never will. So because you never will and you can't, you better worry about the hellfire. فَاتَّقُوا النَّارِ الَّتِي وَقُودُهَا النَّاسُ وَالْحِجَارَةُ. Right? So fear the hellfire. And we talked about what taqwa means, right? What does taqwa mean?
Protection from the punishment of Allah by staying away from harm and doing good.
Yes. So to shield yourself from the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by doing good and staying away from evil. So in this taqwa here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying to have taqwa of the hellfire. وَاتَّقُوا النَّارِ الَّتِي وَقُودُهَا. What kind of hellfire is this? The one that the fuel of it is people and rocks. أُعِدَّتْ لِلْكَافِرِينَ. It has been prepared for the kuffar. And again, who are these kuffar?
Who want to cover up?
No.
Oh, who are they?
Yeah.
Those people
People who cover up the truth.
Yes. So they reject and cover up the truth. Right. So this is who the hellfire was prepared for. So this is the hellfire has been made for these people. So since it's been made for these people, I think the biggest trait that we have to learn to have is to accept the truth no matter where it comes from. All the scholars of the past, the companions, they always accepted the truth. You know, there's a hadith where Shaitan was messing with someone, right? And he told him about reading Ayatul Kursi before he goes to sleep. Okay? I don't remember if it was a boy or not. But nonetheless, the Prophet ﷺ, his response when he heard about the shaitan coming to him, telling him this. He said, Sadaqa wa huwa kadhub. He was truthful, he told the truth, even though he's a liar. So we understand from this is that we take truth from anyone as long as it is the truth. We have to be able to verify that it's the truth. That's the key to accepting it. But we take it from anyone, even if it was shaitan. But again, we have to be able to verify that it's the truth. Okay? And in this case, the Prophet ﷺ, he verified that it was the truth. Right? But we don't have the Prophet ﷺ today. So the only way that we can verify something is the truth is that if it coincides with the Quran and Sunnah. Does that make sense? So therefore, this is sometimes a hard pill to swallow because you could be on your high horse, right? And your little child comes to you and tells you, you did that wrong. Father, mother, you did that wrong. And then the question is, are you willing to accept that? Right? We have to. We have to be willing to accept that. You understand? Why do we have to be willing to accept that? Because what is kufr?
Covering up.
Covering up and rejecting the truth.
But sometimes you have to the kids
She can't do
calm,
it.
Say it again.
to make them calm and like I have to tell them that that's a lie actually.
That's
And
haram
then-
though. That's haram.
Wait, one second. Let us finish. I didn't understand.
That, they come to me and they tell
Trust me,
me,
it's haram.
it's wrong. You told us this and this is not right.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, what's the ruling on that? If a mother lies to the kids for just for the safety or maybe
Well, the thing is this, and again, everybody's on different levels of this, but we have to be willing to accept the truth from anyone. We have to eat that. What do you call it? They call it humble pie,
Yeah. Or humble pie, yeah.
right? And that humble pie is kind of, yes, Allah has given me okay, so you have to understand everything has levels, right? Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Kullukum ra'in wa kullukum mas'ulun an ra'iyati." All of you are shepherds and all of you are in charge of your flock, right? Meaning, or you will be asked about your flock, right? However, imagine if you're leading your flock this way, right? You're in charge of this flock. This meaning all these sheep, they have to listen to you. When you tell it go right, they have to go right. So imagine this sheep now, he talks to you and says, if I go right, we're going to fall off a cliff. We need to go left. So the question is, are you going to be able to swallow your pride, right? And say,
I do accept that, but I'm just asking if I lie to them, for their safety.
What kind of safety are you lying
Wait.
about?
I mean, that's not about safety, but it's just.
you need to stay out of this. if you lie because of the safety.
Yeah, safety or maybe any reason like that.
Okay, so well, the thing is, okay, lying. We're gonna talk about this in Riyadh al-Salihin. There's a lot to talk about in regards to telling the truth and
I
lying.
know it's haram to lie.
Even
But
when
in the
joking.
condition,
Yeah.
there's a condition of lying. Sometimes alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So لقد أوجبوا زورا لإنقاذ مسلم ومال له إذ هو بالزور يطلب ويكره تطيبا لخاطر أهله وإما لإرهاب العدو فيندب. So, and this is when I'm gonna be quoting a fiqhi issue, probably gonna be from the Maliki perspective, most likely. Okay, so this is the Maliki perspective. And they say that it is an obligation to lie to save a Muslim or to save his money. قال المسلمين وما له إذ هو بالزور يطلب ويكره تطيبا, and it is makruh to lie to your wife or wife to your husband. Basically, to say something to make them happy, like, oh, does this make me look ugly? Right?
Oh man.
But so it's makruh in the Maliki madhab, but it's halal in all the other madhab.
Oh really?
Yes. And I think it makes more sense. It makes more sense that it's halal based on the adillah. But in the Maliki madhab, it's makruh. But makruh, understand, makruh doesn't mean haram.
I know, but it's not liked.
No,
What does
makruh.
makruh mean?
Okay, makruh means that if you do it, you don't sin, and if you don't do it, like if you don't do it because it's makruh, then you got blessings. Does that make sense? That's what makruh means.
So is it like eating non-zabiha makruh?
Here we go again.
I'm trying to connect the dots here.
We'll have a separate conversation.
I digress.
So yeah, lying to the children, I think, is never good. In my humble opinion, Allah knows best. And I don't see why it would be a good reason Islamically.
Never a good reason.
Rather the best approach to take is I mean, everybody knows their children, everybody knows how, what do you call it, different behaviors. I think it might be a lot.
But sometimes my daughter, she's a picky eater. She eats only fresh food. Sometimes I have to lie, like, it's fresh. That food is not fresh though. I mean, it's really like,
So that's not
years older.
happy
I mean,
parents
it's
that
a small
care.
thing, but I feel bad. After
So-
that.
Yeah, so I mean,
That's what I'm trying to ask, like, not big lies, but I mean, small things.
A lie is a lie.
I understand. So there's levels to this, right? Like if you want to be on the level of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, which none of us are on that level, obviously. But if we want to be on that level, Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, him lying for the benefit of Islam, he was worried he was going to go to the hellfire because of that. For the benefit of Islam, right? So, what's more important, the benefit of Islam or benefit of children? No, Islam.
I mean, I don't know.
So what I'm not trying to say that this is halal haram, and I don't think it should be that type of conversation. Rather, I think the type of conversation needs to be like, okay, let's take a step back here for a second. We're all humans, right? And we all sin. And we all have issues, right? My weakness is different than yours, or yours, or yours, right? We all have different weaknesses and different issues. Whatever weaknesses that we have, our goal or our goal that we should be working towards is that we become more like the Prophet ﷺ, right? Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu, Prophet ﷺ's servant, right? He said, I lived with the Prophet ﷺ for many years. I don't remember exactly what that amount was, but it was about 10 years, right? And then he said, the Prophet ﷺ never asked me, why did I do this? Like, I mean, okay, let's think about this for a second. You see your child, and then he takes his shoes and he puts it in the living room. First question, why'd you put your shoes there? Right? It's a natural instinct for you to say, why'd you do that? Right? But the Prophet ﷺ never did that. Why did he never do that? It's because he respected their opinion, and Anas ibn Malik continued to say that the Prophet ﷺ would say that if something happened, it was because Allah ordained it. So who am I to question it? So he had respect for his servants, for the little children, for his wives, for everyone. He had respect for their decisions. So as opposed to saying, why did you do this? Or as opposed to saying, or admonishing when they do something, the Prophet ﷺ, he would just show them the right way. He would just give them what's right. And I'll give you one example of that. I know we're going a little bit off topic here, but I think it's important. There were some companions from the Ansar who came to the Prophet ﷺ and they asked him for some money. Okay? So when they asked him, he gave them. So then they came back again. The hadith doesn't indicate how long there was between the first time and the second time and the third time. But nonetheless, they came back again. And the Prophet ﷺ gave them. And then now they came back the third time. And the Prophet ﷺ said that I would never hide anything from you. If I ever had something, I would never hold it back from you. Then أَدَّخِرَهُ عَلَيْكُمْ. I would never like save it, keep it from you. So that was the first thing he said. What was deep about this is the Prophet ﷺ, he didn't say begging is not a good thing. Right? I mean, let's think about it. If you're in this situation, and you know somebody who comes to you, and they ask you for money, then you give it to them, and then they ask you again. But like the second time when they ask you, you're running low, so you don't have much money left, but you give it to them, and you basically have nothing left now. And then now they come and ask you, and you ain't got nothing. You're like, what? You start to get pissed. Right? You just start to like get enraged, like, how dare you take all my money and then you keep asking? Like, that's messed up. But the Prophet ﷺ had a different way of approaching this. Right? What he said was, if I had more, I'm gonna give it to you. So that was the first step. Is they need to understand that I'm willing to give whatever you want. Subhanallah. That right there, there's only one man that I've ever heard of in recent history that was like that. And I know my father to be like that. May Allah bless him. But my father got that from Sheikh ibn Baz, rahmatullahi alayhi. But Sheikh ibn Baz, rahmatullahi alayhi, was like that. Like, if he had money and someone asked him for it, he won't keep it. He'll give it. It doesn't matter how bad he needed it. Aisha radiallahu anha used to say that I would give sadaqah just to see how amazing it was, how Allah would give me for the things that I need, even though I gave up all my money. Like, she would just love to see where the money would come from places she just never expected it to come from. Right? But anyways, let me finish this hadith. So he said, if I had more, I wouldn't hold it back from you. Right? And then, and I may be messing up the order of this, but he said, وَمَن يَسْتَغْنِي يُغْنِهِ اللَّهُ وَمَن يَتَصَبَّرْ يُصَبِّرْهُ اللَّهُ وَمَن يَسْتَعْفِفْ يُعِفَّهُ اللَّهُ. So he mentioned these three things. I could be mentioning it in the wrong order, but nonetheless, these three things he mentioned. So the first thing he said is, if I had more, I would give it to you. And then he said, whoever seeks to be rich, Allah will make him rich. What does this mean? Whoever seeks to be rich, Allah will make him rich. So richness, in another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, richness is not the richness of your pockets or of the money that you have. Richness is the richness of your heart. So what does it mean that someone is rich in the heart?
Content.
What, say, huh?
Who gives a lot?
Well, he's content whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave it to him.
Like
or he's okay with it, whatever.
Not just that he's okay. I mean, think about a rich person.
Content.
Someone who calls himself rich. This person will never ask anybody for money because he's rich. Does that make sense?
Yes.
But you see, there are rich people that we might think are rich who go and ask people for money because they don't think they're rich.
Go to the bank.
Right? There might be millionaires out there. Like one time Sheikh Mu'tazi told me, he said, Abu Bakr, sometimes it's interesting. Some people, they're rich. He said, but sometimes I feel like they're so poor that I feel like maybe I need to give this guy some sadaqah because the way that they're talking. Sometimes you listen to some rich people talking and it sounds like, oh my God, like, do you need some money? Are you okay? You need some help? Right? And the issue is that they're always looking at this other person who's above them.
Yeah.
I don't have that. Yeah, I got a Ferrari, but I don't have a Bentley.
Yeah.
I have 10 houses, but I don't have 20 houses. I don't have that type of house. Do you know what I'm saying? So they're constantly looking at that person who has more than them. So they're like, yeah, I'm not rich. So the Prophet ﷺ said, if you seek richness, Allah will give you richness. So in this, yastagni is to ask for it, is to seek it and to fake it. To fake it is also another meaning of this. Fake richness. How do you fake rich? You don't ask. Right? MashaAllah. So, وَمَن يَسْتَعْفِفْ يُعِفَّهُ اللَّهُ. Okay, and then what is iffa? Iffa is chastity, right? What is chastity, by the way? Because I'm not sure if it's iffa or not.
To be shy.
No. That's not what I mean by chastity. Like someone who doesn't commit zina is afif, right? Afif means someone who is sufficient with halal, who's good with the halal. Like that is where he's good at. Does that make sense? So the richness is in regards to sustenance. The afif is the same thing, but in regards to everything that's halal. So you don't want haram. You're not looking for haram. You just want halal, right? So if you seek to be afif, Allah will make you afif, right? Or if you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for iffa, Allah will give it to you. Or if you fake iffa, Allah will give it to you. Does that make sense? And then the last one, وَمَن يَتَصَبَّرْ يُصَبِّرْهُ اللَّهُ. And then whoever seeks patience or sabr, Allah will make him have sabr. And this is another aspect in regards to both iffa and richness, right? Is having patience. Does that make sense? So, and this is a fact of this world, right? This world, we're going to go through these difficulties where you feel like you don't have enough. You need more of this, or you need more of that, or you need more of this, or you need more of that. Right? That's every human being goes through this. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ وَنَقْصٍ مِّنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. Right? So we're going to test you with fear, hunger, deficiency in money, deficiency in your self-esteem, right? And deficiency in crop or food, right? So, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, give glad tidings to the people who have sabr. الَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَتْهُمْ مُصِيبَةٌ قَالُوا إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. So, nonetheless, Allah, the Prophet ﷺ, he gave them this advice to have sabr, and if what's amazing is the way that he gave this advice. He didn't say, hey, stop begging, have sabr. That's not what he said. He said, he who seeks to be rich, Allah makes him rich. He who seeks to have sabr, Allah gives him sabr. He who seeks to have iffah, Allah gives him iffah. Right? So, the reason that I mentioned that hadith is because this is a challenge as a parent, as a teacher, because a parent is a teacher, right? And every person is a teacher because كلكم راع وكلكم مسؤول عن رعيته. Everybody is a shepherd in their own way, and everybody is in charge of their flock in their own way, right? So everybody has these struggles. So the question is how do you face these struggles? You face them the way the Prophet ﷺ did. The better we can be like him, the better we can face these struggles. Okay, so now, this is the challenge. How much of the Prophet ﷺ are we like him? Because there's this thing that happens where you say, subhanAllah, one thing, because this is a problem we all face. I face this problem. Okay? My philosophy is to always tell everybody who's a part of my flock is, I'm not your example. I'm a bad example. Your example is the Prophet ﷺ. Because if you make me your example, I will disappoint you. Because I have sins. But the Prophet ﷺ didn't have sins. Right? But if you're looking at me, it's not gonna look good. Right? And this is the nature of humans. In human beings, we will be disappointed. Right? Your spouse, your children, your parents, you will always get disappointed. Always. I remember when I turned, as you guys hear me speaking very highly of my parents, when I turned 17, 18, I started to see my parents' faults. Right? So that started to cause friction with me and my parents. When I honestly, till this day, I don't know anybody as perfect as my parents. I don't. But because I thought they were like the Prophet ﷺ, and now I'm realizing they're not like the Prophet ﷺ, I'm like, yo, what's up?
I like that.
Right? Like, what's going on? But that's a high standard, and that's not fair, right? It's not fair for me to hold them to that standard, right? I mean, it's good for them to hold themselves to that, which they do, but it's not fair for me to do that to them. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So there's a lot of aspects here that we have to be aware of when we're dealing with people. And the biggest of this that I want to make sure is clear is that we have to discipline ourselves onto the way of the Prophet ﷺ. And it has to be a lifelong process. Okay? This is the way. It's for all of us. And me first.
Me too.
This advice is for me first. But it's a constant struggle for us to be like him, for us to emulate him in everything that we do, in everything, every aspect, right? The way he brushed his teeth, the way he walked, the way he spoke, the way everything. Abdullah bin Umar radiallahu anhu used to want to stop and use the bathroom the same place he did, the exact same way he saw the Prophet ﷺ doing it. Like, and this is what we want to be like, right? And there's many examples of how the Prophet ﷺ used to deal with young people, used to deal with people when he was raising them, so on and so forth. But nonetheless, the Prophet ﷺ, he led number one by example. He showed them this is the way, right? And number two, the Prophet ﷺ, he was kind with everybody. The Prophet ﷺ, as Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu also mentioned, that he never hit anyone. He never hit anyone, right? That's, subhanAllah, that's deep. Because you can imagine, like, some people really get out of line, and sometimes they really need to be taught a lesson, right? But the Prophet never hit anyone, right? And that's the ultimate guidance. And the thing about never hitting anyone, and I think people have a misunderstanding about this. People misunderstand that the Prophet never hit anyone, that it means that you should never hit anyone. That's not what it means. It means you need to raise them properly so that hitting is not necessary.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Because the Prophet ﷺ did advocate for hitting, right? The Prophet ﷺ said, in regards to your children, that when you raise them, he said, teach them to pray at 7, right? And then hit them at 10.
If they're not doing it.
Right. But he never hit anybody. He's telling us to hit kids at 10.
Yeah.
But he never hit them.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that there's this long discussion with scholars, should you hit your kids at 10? But that's the wrong way of looking at it.
Yeah.
If you teach them.
You shouldn't have to hit them at that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you raise them correctly,
Yeah.
then hitting, it
shouldn't come into play.
exactly. It shouldn't even necessarily be
I thought.
a thought, because you did everything correctly. That hitting is the last resort because you are lacking as a parent, because the parent is lacking. Does that make sense? And it's a tough pill to swallow. It is. There's another concept. I mean, we could talk about these issues all day long, but subhanAllah, there's another concept. The Prophet ﷺ, he said toughness, the only thing toughness did to something is ruin it. And the only thing easiness, lean is softness. The only thing lean does to something is it makes it beautiful. ما دخل الشدة في شيء إلا شانه وما دخل اللين في شيء إلا زانه. Right? Like, the only thing toughness does to something is it makes it ugly, or it destroys it. And the only thing softness does to something is it makes it beautiful. So, all of these concepts, understand that there's an entire lifestyle that is around this. It doesn't just happen by just saying, oh, I just want to be nice. No, there's a whole lifestyle that comes with it. And inshallah, as we get into the Riyadh al-Salihin, we're going to get there, little by little, inshallah. Because everything is tied into this. Everything is tied into it. And this is why we have to try to be like the Prophet ﷺ in every way. Because when we're lacking in one way, it shows in all the other ways. Right? The companions, Ridwanullahi alayhim, when they would be losing a war, or the war was too difficult, they would get together and say, there's a sunnah we must have left. We must not be doing a sunnah. Because when you are on the path of Allah perfectly, there's victory. There's no doubt about it. Right? The problem is when you fall short. The problem is when you're messing up here, you're messing up there, then that is where you face problems. Does that make sense? Understand, difficulty happens in life. Difficulties happen in life. But there's a difference between you are trying to accomplish your agenda with Allah, and then that's not being possible because of the difficulties in life. That means there's something wrong with you and your relationship with Allah. Right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
But if the difficulties are something else, I'm still doing all my jobs with Allah. I still have my relationship with Allah. I'm accomplishing my goals with Allah, but I have a difficult thing that's going on in life. That's okay. Because this happened to the prophets. Right? Does that make sense? But the difficulty that we don't want is I'm not able to do this good deed. That's a problem. And it's not because, I don't have time. It's not because I don't have this. And no. It's because your relationship with Allah, there's something wrong there. There's something off with that. Does that make sense? Because good deeds come from Allah. It's not because I had the time to do it. Because there's a lot of people who have a lot of time, but they still don't do good deeds. And then there's a lot of people who have zero time, and you do a lot of good deeds. Has nothing to do with time, has nothing to do with money, has nothing to do with none of that. It's where is your relationship with Allah? That's what it is. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring us closer to Him. I know I went on a long tangent. I don't know if I answered your question. Inshallah. It's a holistic. There's a lot of things involved in this, but may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us better little by little, step by step, inshallah. But we'll continue to work on all of these things, inshallah, little by little. Inshallah.
I feel bad after lying to them, but still.
With anything, everything that we're going through in life, everybody's on a specific place with Allah. And our goal is, if we're here, you want to be here. So we just take steps. And we should be here to support each other, to make these steps. Right? Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu isbiru wa sabiru wa rabitu wattaqullaha la'allakum tuflihun. Right? Have sabr and sabiru, like do it together. Have sabr together. We bring each other up together, right? Wa rabitu, right? And we do this ribat together. Wattaqullaha la'allakum tuflihun. So we gotta, this is why men, we have to go to the masjid. Right? Because that going to the masjid, it boosts your iman, and we're all doing the same thing together towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? And it's also the showing of the world, so on and so forth. But nonetheless, it's one step at a time. Little by little, little by little. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us closer to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. وَادْعُوا شُهَدَاءَكُمْ مِنْ دُونِ اللَّهِ إِن كُنْتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. Right? If you are truthful. وَبَشِّرِ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. Is that right?
Yes.
And then now, give glad tidings to the believers. Bashir is to give glad tidings. Give news, that's good news. Right? To the believers and who do good deeds. الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. They believe, and that because of their belief, they do good deeds. Because understand, there's also the believers, or the people who have believed, but then there is no action because of their belief. So therefore, it's not true belief. Right? Trying to remember the ayah. It's in Surah Yunus. La ilaha illallah. Yeah, I'm not remembering the ayah right now. No. I'm trying to remember another ayah. Yeah, I'm not remembering the ayah right now, but it's in Surah Yunus. But anyways, so belief is not enough, because there's this thing. A lot of people say, "Oh yeah, I do this haram and I do that haram, but my iman is in my heart. My belief is in my heart." Well, if your belief was truly in your heart, then you would see it on your actions.
You want to do that.
Exactly. So your actions are a sign of your belief. Your actions are a sign of your belief. Someone can't say, "Oh, I'm a believer, but I just really don't feel like praying." Right? No. A believer prays. Because a believer understands his connection to Allah. Oh, I can't pray because this person is doing that, and this situation is this and that. No, all of this is, it's
Excuses.
Exactly, excuses. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving glad tidings to the believers and the ones who do good deeds. Right? What is it that Allah is giving them glad tidings with? أَنَّ لَهُمْ جَنَّاتٍ تَجْرِي مِن تَحْتِهَا الْأَنْهَارُ. Okay, I have a subhanAllah. Well, I used to read to Sheikh Ihab Fikri in Medina, hafidhahullah. I don't know why I did this, but like I would always stop on أَنَّ لَهُمْ جَنَّاتٍ تَجْرِي. Right? He would look at me, he'd be like, "Tajri
In Egyptian?
Yeah, he's Egyptian. He'd be like, what? Because Jannatin Tajri, it means that the gardens are running.
Oh, okay.
Right? But Tajri min tahti al-anhar is the running is the rivers that are running under. Right? So he used to always get on my case for stopping there, but I don't know why. I mean, I probably stopped on that like 10 times maybe. Allah yasamihni, but he used to always get on my case on that. So anyways, the thing that subhanAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions this many times in the Quran, how there are rivers that are running under these gardens. Okay? I mean, I can't imagine that.
Hard to fathom.
Right, like when you think of a river, you're thinking of like, something that you see and there's nothing on top of it. Right? But this has gardens and under it rivers. And the way that Allah is describing it, it's giving you the understanding that you can see the rivers.
So it's like a transparent garden?
I don't know.
Yeah, I always get perplexed with this ayah. I mean,
And the fact that it's mentioned here, I think, is purposely perplexing.
Yeah.
Such that we want to see something like, wow, like, okay, we got to see that.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's constantly mentioning it is that also that it's going to be a sight to see.
Yeah, it comes many times in the Quran.
Right, that it's going to be something that is going to be extremely amazing, and we're going to love it, right? One thing that I can think of that this reminds me of, I mean, it has nothing to do with it, but like the Niagara Falls, right? Just, I'm not saying that they're the same, but I'm just saying how amazing it looks. Like, yeah, you could think of a waterfall. I don't know if have you guys ever been to Niagara Falls?
10 times.
Oh, really? 10
Yeah,
times?
we had family in
Okay,
Toronto.
mashallah.
Yeah,
So like, yeah, it's a waterfall, and the pictures look nice, but you really don't understand it until you're actually there, and you're just like, wow, and it's a wonder,
yeah, it's probably
right? So you could talk about Niagara Falls all you want, you could see pictures all you want, you could see videos all you want,
not the
but
same.
it doesn't
Do justice.
do justice, right? Until you actually go there and see it for yourself. You know what I mean? And the same thing for the Kaaba, right? The Kaaba is just like, yeah, they tell you the Kaaba is big, right? And you don't really know what that means until you're actually there, right? And I feel like this is the same type of situation. Obviously, it's going to have to be on another level because in Jannah, it has what no eye has seen, no ear has heard, and no heart has ever felt. So this Jannah is going to be out of this world. Exactly. There's no way you can describe it with anything in this world. But yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, out of His mercy for us, He's given us things to give us examples of it, or snippets of it, so that we can want to be a part of it, right? So these people who believe and they do good deeds, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving them He's giving them good news, right? And the good news is that they will have gardens, under it run rivers. كلما رزقوا منها من ثمرة كلما رزقوا منها من ثمرة رزقا قالوا هذا الذي رزقنا من قبل. Every time they will be given a crop, could be a vegetable, a fruit, I don't know, but nonetheless they're given something, right? And this something is a rizq. Again, a rizq is something that you benefit from, right? They say, we were given this before, but it's nothing like the one before. Like, there are things that look similar, but they become better and better, or they change, or is it the thing that's changing? I don't know. Or is it that it's just something that looks like it and it is better? But nonetheless, the thing that's important to understand is variety, okay, and the betterness, that it's better and better.
So with each bite, it changes.
Right. So when they got it, they say, هذا الذي رزقنا من قبل.
We've seen this before.
Right, we've gotten this before. We've received it. We've received this before. Right? But it's nothing like it. Right? وَأُتُوا بِهِ مُتَشَابِهًا, and they look alike. There's things that look alike. Right? وَلَهُمْ فِيهَا أَزْوَاجٌ مُطَهَّرَةٌ, and in Jannah has pure wives. Right? So now, this is an aspect wives in Jannah. So in Jannah, there are hur ain and hur teen. Hur ain and hur teen. Okay? Hur ain are women of Jannah that never lived on this earth. Okay? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes them in many ayat in the Quran. And these are for the righteous men, obviously. These are for the righteous men. Hur teen are the women of this world that are in Jannah. Okay? So the women of this world that are in Jannah, the difference between them is that the women of this world that are in Jannah are the queens of those other women, Hur'een. They are above them. Above them in every way. Right? And there's a lot of hadith that describe this. They escape me right now, so I can't quote them. So somebody might ask, how is that fair? That men in Jannah get multiple wives, and then that women in Jannah will just have their husband. right?
Alhamdulillah for the women.
Well, no, well, so someone may ask this question, like, how is that something that's fair?
This is very complicated.
That's her question.
Yeah,
Should
it's
I,
very
should we
complicated.
start with me?
So the thing is, and this is important to understand, is first step. Let's look at this from the aspect of just multiple wives in general, right? Allah knows what He created. Yes or no? Okay. So because Allah knows what He created, He knows what's best for that creation. Right? Okay. Allah, Allah. Wow, subhanAllah, time flies. Allah, Allah. The thing about this issue, um, honestly, I kind of feel like this is something that would require like one or two, maybe even three classes to fully talk about. The reason why is because I think our society today has corrupted this aspect in so many ways. Now, I'm not advocating that every man should have more than one wife. Nor am I even advocating that every man has to get married, period. Right? Rather, the thing that I'm trying to say here is that the fact that this is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has legislated is that there is wisdom in it. Right? Like the fact that we have to make salah is that it's critical to our lives that we have to do that. Yeah, there are other salawat that we don't have to do. We don't have to do, but there's benefit in it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So the same type of concept applies to every part of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's legislation. Right? This is in this world. Right? Now, I mean, I'm trying to figure out how deep to get into this because we only got like 5 minutes. But okay, so now that's looking at this world, and we understand without looking at the exact wisdoms that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has in legislating that it is possible in this world. Now let's look at the next world. First of all, the next world is nothing like this world. It's on different laws and everything is different about it. Right? But just like there is wisdom in this world, there is obviously wisdom for it in the next world. Okay? But I want to hone in on one aspect to this. And that is, as human beings, we have different things that we're looking for in life. Right? A man wants to be strong. Right? I mean, and I'm gonna start stereotyping here, because obviously if I say a man does this, there are women who may want that, but the majority of women don't really care about it. Right? A man, he would love it if you tell him you're strong. A woman will love it if you tell her she's beautiful. A man doesn't care if you tell him he's beautiful. Right? Doesn't mean anything to me. Does that make sense? So there's different wants and likes and things that we're after in this world. What a woman wants is completely different than what a man wants, right?
Psyches are different. Psychology is different.
The psychology is different, yes. So therefore, I mean, we are created differently. So therefore, the reward has to be different. And the reward has to be proportionate to what it is that's going to interest you. By the way, there's a hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said that everyone in Jannah will get what they want while they're in Jannah. So, I mean, think about this for a second. Like, if you're a woman and you're in Jannah and you want more than one husband, then you would get it. But they don't want it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's not what they're looking for.
Exactly.
That's not what they're after. Do you know what I'm saying? And the same thing for men. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gives us everything that we want as well. So the things that men want are different than what the things women want. They are completely different. So therefore the rewards are different. Okay? Like for example, the fact that a woman from this dunya in Jannah is the queen of all the other women. For me, that makes no sense to me. Why would that be beneficial?
Yeah.
But women would love that. Right? But for us men, we're just like, so? Right?
Yeah.
So the reward in Jannah, or the things that we're going to get in Jannah, is based on the things that we are interested in. The things that we want. And the things that we want based on our fitrah. Because there are people who might think that they are good people, and then they want things that they think that they are good things, but they're not on the fitrah, because maybe the Prophet ﷺ is on this path and they're somewhere over here. Right? So they think that they're wanting something good, but it's not good. Right? So in order for them to come here, once they start coming back to the straight path, then their desires become pure. Right? And then the things that you want are things that Allah has put in you to want. Does that make sense? So, and that's based on our taqwa and our closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's trying to summarize the issue as much as I can, but inshallah khair. We have to also talk about وَهُمْ فِيهَا خَالِدُونَ. So don't let me forget about that next week, inshallah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. وإياك.